So I'm not going to get into too much detail in this video about any specific health benefits of turmeric because that's what I did in the last video. So if you want to learn all about that, go and watch the last video. There's a link to that video down in the description box underneath this one. I'll stick a link up on the screen somewhere around here as soon as I can remember. But in this video we're going to make our own turmeric powder from fresh turmeric rhizomes, and this is really, really important for a number of different reasons, which we will discuss further when we're getting busy in the kitchen. So without further ado, please join me in the kitchen. Okay, so first of all, you want to make sure that your turmeric is organic or even biodynamic, okay? You don't want to bother with any of that non-organic stuff because it's grown using synthetic pesticides and other chemicals that your body just can't metabolize. Plus, non-organic turmeric is routinely irradiated. And what's so bad about that? Well, to be honest, irradiation of food is not something that's been done on a large scale for long enough for us to know what the long-term consequences may be. But we do know that it creates a number of free radicals in the food that, you know, they're going to destroy some foodborne pathogens, but they're actually going to create certain toxins within the food as well. It actually breaks down and destroys a lot of live enzymes that we find in fruits and vegetables and herbs and stuff like that. So this, generally speaking, is not something that we want to be putting in our bodies. So basically the shelf life of the turmeric increases, but the nutritional content of it goes down significantly. So ultimately, this is more to do with safeguarding corporate return on investment than it is to do with your health. So we also see that turmeric that has been irradiated actually shows a much brighter orange color, whether it's a powder or the inner flesh of the whole fresh rhizome. And a lot of people mistakenly believe this to be that it's more medicinal, that it's stronger, and that it has a higher curcumin content, curcumin being the active ingredient in turmeric. And this really isn't the case. And a lot of non-organic turmeric is also dyed a different color for exactly this reason, you know, because it looks better quality and people believe that it's stronger and has more medicinal power in it. And what we find is when we're using turmeric like this, a very small amount of it is going to dye our meal a completely different color. And when we're using organic turmeric, whether it's a powder or a fresh root, the inner flesh or the powder should be a very vibrant, strong orange, but a very tiny amount of it is not going to change the color of our entire meal to something completely different. You know, you need to use quite a bit of it to achieve that effect. So ultimately, when we're using non-organic, irradiated and dyed turmeric, we're basically just dyeing our meal rather than infusing it with medicine. So it has to be organic or biodynamic, I'm afraid. You know, nothing else is going to do what you're expecting it to do. But, you know, that's enough of all that. Let's go over there and actually start making the powder. So when we buy turmeric as a fresh organic rhizome, we're going to get it either like this, like the small roots, or we're going to get these big chunky ones. Now, you obviously just get whatever you can get your hands on, but for this purpose, when we're making the powder, the first thing we need to do is we need to peel these rhizomes. We need to completely peel the skin off so we've revealed the flesh underneath. We're going to have to do this quite a lot in order to yield a good amount of powder. It doesn't really need to take that long, but the message here is that if we've got hundreds of these tiny roots, it's going to be a real pain in the ass to peel them all, and it's going to take a long time, and what we're going to have to show for it at the end is not really going to be a hell of a lot. If we've got really big roots like these, you know, if you can get hold of stuff like this, definitely do that, because we're going to peel this. This is going to be worth, like, you know, 5, 6 or 7 of these ones. So this is going to save you a lot of time. It's going to cut your workload, and you're going to end up with a lot more to show for your work at the end of it. Something else you need to know when you're peeling turmeric is that it is going to dye your hands orange, and it's going to take about a week for that to wash out. So if you have rheumatoid arthritis and that's in your hands, in the knuckles, you know, they're very swollen, they're very painful, then I think this is excellent, you know, dye your hands orange. It's going to have so many anti-inflammatory and analgesic health benefits that I think it's a small price to pay to have orange hands to get those kind of benefits. But if you don't have rheumatoid arthritis in your hands and you don't really want to have orange hands for a week, then I definitely recommend wearing gloves. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so we've peeled all of our fresh rhizomes. Now we've got to chop them up into small pieces. So after we've peeled and we've chopped all of the turmeric, we're going to have to dry it. So if you live in a hot country, then of course, dry it in the sun. Just make sure you cover it with a gauze or a mesh of some kind to keep any kind of insects or dust or debris off them. And obviously you want to have it somewhat sheltered from the wind so the wind isn't going to blow your turmeric all over the place. A good option for that would be to use a solar oven. But of course, if you're living in a colder climate or you're doing this in winter or just you don't have access to whatever you need, then using a food dehydrator is another good option. That's what I'm going to use. But we can't put these slices in the dehydrator before we've given them a quick rinse. And I do mean quick when I say that, because water's a very good solvent, okay? So this is actually going to start to extract some of the contents of the turmeric. You can see the water's already going a little bit yellow, so we want to give it a quick swish around, and then we want to strain it off. No more than a few seconds, really. So that's going to get some of the little bits of skin and debris off. And we want to space these out evenly across the tray. We don't want them all piled up on top of each other. And, you know, when we chop them, just remember you chop them into really small, thin pieces because it's going to just be quicker and easier to dry. It's going to be easier to grind it into a powder when we're done drying it. Now you can do a lot of stuff with a food dehydrator. I think it's worth getting one for this purpose alone. Just to be able to make your own turmeric powder is just such an amazing blessing. So I definitely invest in one of these. You can get smaller ones that are a bit cheaper, but it's definitely worth getting one for this. So if you're going to use a dehydrator like I am, you want to set it to 105 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 41 degrees Celsius. We're going to dry these for about 4 hours. And that temperature is going to allow these to completely dry whilst still retaining all of the nutrient value and the enzymes that are within the root. So we just turn this on. And come back in 4 hours. Okay, so here we are 4 hours later and our pieces of root are now completely dry. So now we need to take our pieces of dried root and we need to grind them up into a powder. Now I got a spice mill for doing this, but if you have a coffee grinder, you can also use that. Now obviously in a machine this size, we don't want to be putting huge amounts of the root in at a time. And we also want to use a sieve to filter out some of the larger pieces, because any lumps, any stuff that's a little bit too big to be considered a powder, we're just going to grind that up again. And we're going to repeat this process. We're going to grind the dried roots, sieve it, and any larger pieces, we're going to grind them again and just keep repeating that until everything has been reduced to a very fine powder, like what's going in the bowl right now. I just wanted to do a quick comparison for you. On the left here, we've got store-bought organic turmeric powder. And on the right, we've got the powder that I just made from the fresh turmeric root. So you can see, hopefully, the big difference in color and vibrancy. I mean, wow, look at that. Plus, the aroma of this one is so much stronger than the one on the left. The taste is so much better than the one on the left. Now, that's not to say that the one on the left is absolutely no good. It's organic turmeric root. It is definitely going to be good. But the point is, when we buy something like that, we don't know, even though it's good quality, we don't know when it was harvested, when it was dried, when it was powdered. We don't know for how long has it been stored in some warehouse somewhere before it was even shipped over here. And then how long was it sitting in a warehouse over here before I ended up buying it and using it? So if we buy the fresh roots, we know that they've been recently harvested, and if we process them and powder them as quickly as possible, then we know that we've got the most potent, the best possible turmeric powder that we could have. So you want to store this ideally in an airtight glass jar, and I use these desiccant bags, you know, these little silica-filled bags that help to absorb all of the moisture so that they can stop the powder from becoming moist and lose some of its shelf life. Somebody asked a question on the previous video saying that where they work, it's not really possible for them to be preparing anything with turmeric, and they're at work all the time. So they want to make turmeric powder, they want to use it every day, and they want to encapsulate it, but they wanted to know how much black pepper to include in that mixture. Because of course black pepper, specifically the Piper nigrum species from India, which is really just common black pepper, the piperine constituent in that black pepper makes the curcumin in turmeric 2,000% more bioavailable and usable by the body. So if we want to achieve that kind of effect, the scientific breakdown that I've seen of that ratio is basically if we've got 1 gram of turmeric powder, we want 0.1 milligrams of black pepper. So that works out to be 1 part black pepper to 100 parts turmeric. So basically the amount of black pepper you're going to use is 1% of the overall amount of turmeric that you're using. So, you know, if you're going to do that mixture in powder and encapsulate it, aim for something like that. But to be honest with you, I don't really think we need to be that exact. You know, we can just add a pinch of black pepper to a much larger volume of turmeric powder. It's pretty much going to give us a good effect, you know. But another little word here on this: if you're going to use black pepper to enhance the bioavailability and the absorption of the curcumin in turmeric, we don't always want to do that. For example, if we had IBS or Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, these are all conditions that are pretty much setting up camp within the digestive tract, within the intestinal tract or the colon. So ideally, we want to have as much turmeric or as much curcumin in the digestive tract not being absorbed if we want to treat these conditions more successfully by using turmeric. Ideally, I would say take some with black pepper and take some without black pepper consistently, you know, throughout the day on a daily basis if you're suffering from these conditions. Then you've got curcumin in the bloodstream that's approaching the condition from one side, and then you've got turmeric in the digestive tract approaching it from that side. So you're kind of coming at it from both directions. The person was also saying, to get back to this original comment, that obviously they want to use the capsules at work because they don't have time to make a preparation any other way. I'd also add that in your case, you might want to use the tincture of turmeric. And ideally you would want there to be an additional extract or tincture of black pepper in that, because that's going to be so much more absorbable. We're going to take that sublingually under the tongue. It's going to absorb directly into the bloodstream within a couple of minutes. It's going to bypass digestion almost completely. So if you're just going to take it as a supplement and you want it to be as effective as possible, I'd say the tincture is probably, you know, the best way forwards. So preparing stuff like this at home is something that we should really be getting back to culturally, I think, you know, because when you prepare turmeric powder like this, it's going to be the freshest, strongest, and most potent turmeric on the planet. It's so much more vibrant than store-bought powder. It smells better, it tastes better, and if you store it properly, it's actually going to last for a very long time. So thanks again for watching, take it easy, and I'll talk to you again soon.